Don't wait until things are all better to live better.
Welcome to Blueprints for Brilliance Coaching Insights, a podcast by coaches for coaches. Our guests share their hard-won wisdom to help you grow your coaching business and create a life of success. So get ready to unlock the blueprints to your success. Welcome, everyone, to a new episode. Today, we have a lovely person. Her name is Jenn Fredericks. Her company name is Prosilience Coach. And she's going to talk to us today about proactive resilience. So I can't wait to hear about that and hear her story. So welcome, Jenn. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. I really love having conversations about resilience and how to support people as they're faced with challenges.
I love that term. How did you come up with it?
Well, I can't take credit. I wish I could. I actually have adapted the work of Linda Hoops, who is an industrial and organizational psychologist, and she has written the book Prosilience, which is proactive resilience. And I ran across it when I was about 4 or 5 years into my coaching career and learning more about resilience. And as I read it, I was just in awe because she had put language to what I'd been doing innately since I was a teenager with chronic illness. And to be able to have language put to it, finally, after people were asking me, how are you so resilient? And I didn't know. It's like, oh my gosh, I can use this now and I can take it and I can help other people with it. And so that credit all goes to Linda. She has researched resilience for over 30 years and helps people with personal resilience, teams with resilience, organizational resilience, and then also this concept of preparing for challenges before we face them.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your illness, because I feel like that's
Sure.
what led you down this path, right? Of coaching.
Yeah. Well, so there were 2 illnesses actually that led me down the path. The first was when I was in middle school, I was diagnosed with end-stage renal disease and ended up having my first kidney transplant at age. Very thankful that my dad was a match and a donor. And
Wow.
that beautiful kidney lasted 18 years. So I got to do all of those normal teenage young adult milestones thanks to that. Graduated high school, went to college, graduated college, met my future husband, we bought a house, I got a job, we adopted a little girl, all of those wonderful things that you hope for in life.
Wow. And then what was the second illness?
Well, the second was my second kidney transplant that I had in 2012 after the first kidney said, like, I'm tired, we'll see you later. And so was very blessed that my husband's fraternal twin brother was a match. And so I've been living with his kidney now for 11 years.
Wow.
So that's illness 2, but then illness 3 is really the one that brought me to my knees and let me know that I needed to do life differently. I wanted to do life differently. And that was the diagnosis of my daughter when she was 7 with a low-grade brain tumor. And that's the one that you don't really know how to manage as much as your own, because that's your heart outside of your body. You want to take all of the suffering from your child, from your loved ones. And I didn't quite have the energy or the tools to do that. And when I was gently asked to leave my corporate marketing job about a year after her diagnosis, just company-wide layoffs, I flippantly said to my mom, well, maybe I'll try this life coaching thing I've heard about. I had never experienced a life coach session.
Okay.
But I remember a friend saying one time, oh, you'd be a really great life coach. I'm like, oh, thanks. I don't know what that is. And then did experience a coaching session in conjunction with, I went and tried chakra alignment to see if that might help my energy around my daughter's diagnosis. And so I was pretty interested and intrigued. I reached out to a former coworker from my marketing days who had left the marketing gig to become a coach and joined that certification. And for the next 2 months, and after 8 months, I was certified as a life coach. And, I thought I was doing it for my career. I was doing it for me and my health and my family's health and my relationships. And it has just been life-changing.
I bet. So how did you move forward with your daughter? How did you kind of find the resilience? And, obviously the coaching certification, just going through that process probably really helped you start to heal yourself quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But then how did that continue? How did you continue on that journey with her?
Sure. And we're still managing her diagnosis. She had one of her routine MRIs just a couple of days ago and everything is stable. So we're thankful for that. But, I think a great foundation was laid for me during my illness. I am very comfortable in the medical setting. Like the beeping in hospital rooms actually puts me to sleep rather than keeps me up, which is different. But I find that being able to have great self-awareness of where I'm at and understand what I am feeling, and then taking the pause and deciding how I want to respond to whatever is coming up in the moment has really helped me be resilient, because it doesn't drain my energy. And actually, in the framework of Prosilience, we talk about human resilience is fueled by energy. And so if we don't have that energy fueled, our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, we can't access our resilience.
It's interesting. I want to dig deeper on that.
Yeah.
I also grew up in hospitals. When I was born, I was diagnosed with a heart murmur, in hospitals often.
Yes.
And then through my heart murmur, a chest x-ray showed that I had scoliosis. Spent years in a brace, and then eventually had a steel rod put in my back. And I spent about 6 weeks paralyzed, being flipped over on a bed, and where they almost broke my leg one time in a body cast. And yeah, I think that whatever doesn't kill us makes us stronger. But you definitely learn different coping mechanisms. I'm like you, I'm 100% comfortable in hospitals. All my friends here are like, will you go to the hospital with me, or will you go to the doctor's office and listen to what they're telling me and ask good questions? So I can see that our early on experiences have so much to do with how we end up as adults. But I definitely want to know more about this energy.
Oh, so I am very sensitive to energy, and I'm easily depleted of energy. And when I learned through my original coach certification how to be self-aware, how to set boundaries, how to manage my own emotions and beliefs and desires and all of those things, I was well on the way to learning how to manage my personal energy. When I went through personal resilience practitioner training with Resilience Alliance and Linda Hoops, I then learned more about the concept of the 4 types of energy and how we can manage our 4 types of personal energy. And it's actually one of the 4 building blocks of Prosilience. But managing energy helps us actually fuel our resilience. Human energy is a strategic resource, and we need to protect it. And we need to learn to manage and build and replenish it. And when we look first at our physical energy, that is the ways that we use our body to get things done. That's pretty self-explanatory. But if we aren't fueled with those, I think are the main messages of self-care, the nutrition pillar, the drinking plenty of water, the sleep hygiene, movement, all of those things help build and replenish our physical energy. When we have enough of that, then we're able to look at our mental, emotional, and spiritual. Our mental allows us to think clearly and quickly and make decisions that are part of our wise mind, our thinking mind, rather than slipping into sort of sympathetic central nervous system reactions. So we can slow down and we can make wise decisions. Our emotional then is being able to work with difficult feelings, being able to sit with difficult feelings, and knowing that we are okay, even with those difficult feelings. And then the spiritual, it can be religious, but for many, it's that idea of connecting with a sense of meaning and purpose outside of themselves.
Oh, I love that definition.
Yeah. And so when you're able to, you're not going to have all of these at 100% all of the time, most likely. But if you're able to balance them and keep them fueled to some level, then you're going to be able to meet challenges with more grace and with more ease as you move into some of the other building blocks of Prosilience.
So how do you recommend that people do keep them fueled? I know it's a lot of different areas, and so there's different ways to do that. But if that's a key to being proactive and ready for those challenges that come along, what kind of things would you tell people that to do?
Physical, right? So we've all heard this, right? Our doctors tell us this, all of those wonderful people who are trying to keep our physical self healthy, nutrition, rest, movement, all of those things to build our mental energy. If those things are hard for you, I would pick one to focus on and slightly improve day by day. Small, steady steps are the key to being able to build and replenish energy. I like talking a little bit about the spiritual energy piece, because I actually like recommend people take some time to focus internally and really think about what your values are, and possibly even write yourself a mission statement. In my agency and corporate days, every company I worked with as clients, or the company that I was actually working in, there were always the mission statements and there were the values on the wall. And so if people can take some time and be with themselves and really figure out what those are for them, then that can help direct you sort of as your guiding light, as your North Star. And I find that when I build and replenish my spiritual energy, it trickles more for me into then being able to handle some of the emotions and even making more clear decisions and using my wise mind, because I have this focus that helps lead me down the path.
Well, tell us a little bit more about the wise mind. That interests me.
So wise mind is kind of talking about when we're reactive versus responsive. And it goes back to how human evolution and how we're wired and how our brain works. And so we have our amygdala that was first developed when we were first walking the earth. And it basically was to try to keep us alive. And that's where a lot of our reactions come from. So when we talk about bringing your wise mind online, that means engaging with and using more of your prefrontal cortex. So some of the reasoning that we humans are blessed with, and being able to pause with breath, I recommend, because breath is a remote control for our brain. If you're having a moment where you're going to react to something, but you would rather respond, like take a pause and breathe. And that time allows our prefrontal cortex, our wise mind, to come back online and help direct our response to whatever situation we're in.
It's funny. I remember when I have teenagers, they're coming out of the teenage years, but I remember reading about that, and it said basically all the changes are happening in their body and chemically. And they said basically their prefrontal cortex goes to sleep.
Yes.
So that part of that wise mind just kind of drifts off into la la land, and everything is emotional for them.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about some client success stories. We always like to hear how you work with different people in different walks of life. And what's that been like? What have their results been, or their aha moments been?
Or, well, I recently wrapped up a 4-week series with caregivers for children with brain tumors. And as a caregiver on a long marathon, such as a brain tumor, and speaking from experience, you don't really have much energy to do much else but survive. My question then was, if we're working so hard to heal, can we also live? Because why else are we working so hard to heal? There's a difference between living and being alive. And so during this 4-week course, we looked at all of the building blocks of proactive resilience. And quite a few of them found great insight into what I called their caregiving superpowers. So there's a wonderful personal resilience questionnaire that I'm able to administer and then provide personal debriefs on, where we look at which of your resilience muscles are most easily accessed during challenge. So this isn't talking about your overall personality. This isn't talking about how you show up day to day. This is specifically talking about how you face and solve problems during challenge. And those resilience muscles are positivity, confidence, priorities, creativity, connection, structure, and experimenting. And what a lot of the participants found interesting is that connection resilience muscle was less easy to access than some of the others. And for each individual, it's different, because some people might pull back even though they want connection. They might pull back. Or it's just interesting that when you look at connection and you're in this very life-changing diagnosis, how much it really is important to draw on others for resources and support. And then for us to be able to dig into why maybe they weren't seeking that connection, even though they longed for it. So that was one interesting. And the other big aha, which is I usually work with patient and caregiving clients first on managing energy. Because again, if you don't have that energy, you can't fuel your resilience as effectively. So we spent quite a bit of time on managing energy. And one funny thing is, as a caregiver, if someone said to you one more time, like, oh, be sure to take care of yourself. Oh, be sure to, do some self-care. Like, a lot of caregivers want to throw something at that person, even though they know it's coming from a place of love and care. But it's like, I can barely take a shower. I can't, when you think of self-care, you think of, oh, I'm going to go get a manicure or a massage. Or like, I'm lucky to sleep 2 hours in the hospital when my kid's inpatient. So being able to take a look at managing energy as your self-care when you're in those challenges was quite a light bulb moment. It was for me as well. Finding those little glimmers. We talked about that at the beginning of each session. Deb Dana, a psychologist who has coined the term glimmers as an opposition to triggers. So we looked at, what are the little joys? What are the glimmers that happen this week? Yes, I know that your child has an MRI and OT and PT and all. Where did you find a little glimmer? Because as we identify those and we bring those into ourselves, that actually helps us fuel resilience as well. Each person responds differently to challenges, and especially when it's one where you have to manage so many different aspects of the human condition, that it can be overwhelming. And so I love how you all are asking me to focus in on like an example. What is an example that someone can do? Because sometimes that's all we can do is one thing, and that's enough.
Yeah. Do you generally work with caregivers or do you work with business owners? Who do you generally work with?
So in the past, I was 7 years focused on general life coaching, personal and professional development, and I worked with one-on-one clients. I facilitated workshops for both organizations as well as individuals who self-selected to take the general kind of personal development. In January, I went out on my own, and my focus is patients and caregivers. And that is who I want to reach. And I want to reach them one-on-one. I want to reach them through this wonderful foundation that brought me in, going to, I know some amazing camps for children with cancer and their families, like going and giving speeches there about how you can manage your energy, or you can deconstruct the stress around scanxiety, if you've heard that term at all. That's my mission. And currently I am reaching out to more and more foundations and organizations to say, your people are here already, and they're looking for information like this. And I'd love to be the space holder for that discovery and discussion.
I think it's so powerful too, because if you think about it, whether you're the person with the illness or the caregiver, having someone that's coming to you and not necessarily talking about the illness, more about talking about like you as a whole person, because you still are a whole person,
right?
And talking about like there are things that you can do no matter what's going on that can help you physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually with just little tweaks and little changes is what it sounds like.
Definitely.
So when you start off working with someone, do you start off by giving them an assessment? Is that something that happens each time you work with someone new?
That is one route. It really depends on what specifically they want to focus on. So as with this foundation workshop, we went through several of the building blocks first and learned more about the ingredients, I'd say, of Prosilience, and then went into the personal resilience questionnaire. And then we actually looked at a group chart, which was quite interesting as like caregivers as a population, although everyone is different. And so even though someone might have scored a certain way, that doesn't mean everyone will. Those debriefs are really powerful, because then we actually also come up with an action plan. Okay, what resilience muscle would you like to build? If you're not quite there to build resilience muscles, how would you like to start working on building your energy? And then come up with an action plan where you can either like make a workout and specifically decide, okay, this day I'm going to do this. Or I like to do it by just living in real life. And as micro challenges come up, employ these different building blocks so I can slowly build and have it become part of my muscle memory when challenges come my way. And then sometimes with one-on-one clients, we start just with, where are you at? What is your intention for this session? We talk about glimmers. I talk about how important it is for you to recognize those glimmers in life and what's working. Because when we do that, we engage the parasympathetic nervous system, which allows more of the information to be taken in and intertwined with our days. And then we'll take a look at which building block seems most beneficial for you. Is it learning about regulating, self-regulation and calming yourself? Is it choosing strategies and practicing different strategies to meet challenges with? Is it flexing your resilience muscles? Is it taking a look at your personal resilience questionnaire and then building a plan from there? Or is it focusing on your energy?
Wow, this is amazing. I want to ask a question. I want to ask if we can ask a question. So Jenn, how old is your daughter now, and how long has she been living with her brain tumor, and how is she doing?
She is 15 now, so she's wrapping up her second semester of freshman year of high school. She was diagnosed when she was 7, so in first grade. And she is doing as well as can be expected. You know, the tumor is stable. It's actually more dealing with the comorbidities that come along with the diagnosis and already of the treatments that she's already had. So some issues with memory, cognitive processing, of course, the medical trauma, we work through that a lot. She has professional help for that. And then she has me for that. And I think that's really one of the reasons why I became a coach, because if she's having an anxious day, I'm able to use some of the self-regulation calming techniques that I've learned in my first certification, as well as my personal resilience practitioner certification. So I have a story for you.
Yes.
When she was 8, she was in the hospital for a couple of days, and it's a wonderful children's hospital, and the nurses and staff are amazing. They come in the morning and they ask you, what's most important to you today? So you sort of have that focus and that goal and something to, to move toward. She was like 8, right? So her answers usually were like, I want to eat 3 bowls of chocolate ice cream today, or I want to go play in the toy room, or I really want to watch, I don't know, Victorious, on the TV. So this one day, and I was probably only about a year into my coaching career at that point, she answered the nurse by saying, being where my feet are. It's going to be most important for me to be where my feet are today. And to me, that meant like presence, being with her dad and I, and not worrying and thinking too far into the future. And so when she said that, I think all the breath left my body. She is listening, and the way that my husband and I were showing up, like we're being able to model that for her and help influence her experience of this very traumatic time. She's doing well. She is a bright light with a golden heart, and she has her sights focused on either becoming a pediatric nurse or a child life specialist. And so we're doing what we can to support her there and help her focus on those dreams, because having that vision, having that mission that I talked about around the spiritual energy piece, helps keep you moving forward.
Yeah, I love that they asked her that every day, because it does we sometimes spend a lot of time thinking about the big picture, or I want this to happen now and it's going to take me a year, but to kind of bring it back to, what do I want today?
Yeah.
I think if you're in a hospital and you're sick, right, you feel so out of control. Mm-hmm. So I love that they did that by asking her that question. It gave her some level of control over her life and her day.
Right.
That she got to make a choice about. I think that whoever the nurses and doctors were brilliant. That was a good process that they took her through.
Yeah. I'm always like, oh my gosh, I want a children's hospital for adults. Not that I don't have a great care team for my kidneys. I do. They're amazing. And like, we're the adult life specialists.
Well, Jenn, this has been absolutely amazing. We've learned so much from you. If people would like to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Well, I have a website. It's ProsilienceCoach.com. On there, there's a phone number, a contact form, email. I'm also on LinkedIn under Jenn Fredericks. And then also I play a little bit on Facebook at Jenn Fredericks Prosilience Coach, and Instagram at jfredwi.
We'll put all of the links in the show notes. And this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been my pleasure.
We have one last question for you, though. If you had one tip to give people who are listening to make the world a better place, what would that be?
Don't wait until things are all better to live better.
Love that. That's perfect. Jenn, like Kirsten said, this has been amazing. And we are so grateful for people like you who do what you do, because there's a big need out there, and you're a shining light for so many. So thank you. Thank you for being here today with us.
Thank you. And thank you for holding the space for everyone to come and share.
Thanks for joining us today on Blueprints for Brilliance Coaching Insights. We hope you're leaving this episode with inspiration to take your coaching business and your life to the next level. If you found value in this episode, we would love it if you would subscribe and share it with someone else who you think might benefit from hearing it. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next episode.